You know what nobody tells you about being the most powerful woman in England? You can't even die in peace. March 1603, Richmond Palace, and there's a smell coming from the Queen's chambers that's leaving courtiers in total shock in the hallway. We're talking about an air of decay so heavy that guards are holding perfumed cloth to their faces just to stand near the door. Inside that room, Elizabeth Tudor, the Elizabeth, the one who stared down the Spanish Armada, who turned England into a superpower. She's sitting on floor cushions, refusing to move, refusing to lie down. Her physical condition was collapsing while she was still breathing. Let me back up. February, same year, the Queen's best friend dies, Catherine Howard, Countess of Nottingham. And on her deathbed, Catherine decides it's confession time. She tells Elizabeth something that's been buried for years. There was a letter from Robert Devereux, the Earl of Essex, the man Elizabeth loved, the man she had executed for treason. Turns out, Essex wrote her, begged for mercy, begged for forgiveness, and Catherine intercepted it. Elizabeth never saw it. She signed his death warrant thinking he went to the grave defiant, unrepentant. She killed the man she loved because she never knew he was sorry. That broke her. Rule number one when you're queen, you don't get to fall apart just because your heart does. But Elizabeth, she lost all appetite for life. She fell into a deep historical melancholy, refusing to speak to her closest advisors, just stood there for hours, staring at nothing. And when she finally spoke, it was the same thing over and over. Must I depart? Yeah, you must. We all must. But here's the twist. Elizabeth wasn't going quietly. Now let me tell you something they don't teach you in history class. To understand this, you have to look at the lethal beauty standards of the 1600s. For 45 years, Elizabeth followed historical, medical, and cosmetic practices that were actually deadly. Elizabeth had been painting her face white for 45 years, every single day. Thick white paste called Ceruse of Venice made her look pale, aristocratic, untouchable. That's what queens did back then. That ghostly white face became her trademark. Problem is, Ceruse of Venice, lead carbonate mixed with vinegar. She'd been applying these toxic elements to her skin since she was in her 20s, unaware of the long-term systemic damage. And it gets worse. When she was younger, Elizabeth caught smallpox, left scars all over her face and body. So her doctors, these guys thought they were helping. They prescribed mercury ointments. Rub it into the scars, they said. It'll heal you, they said. Mercury, lead, 45 years of layering it on, letting it soak in, building up in her organs. You spend your whole life trying to look immortal, and all you're doing is a slow, unintended tragedy. History hides these details, but we're uncovering them. Join us by subscribing to Candlelit History. By March, the toll of her lifestyle was undeniable. Elizabeth developed a severe swelling in her throat that made even whiskering a struggle. Her complexion was failing, and her physical condition had reached a point of distressing decline. The invincible queen was being betrayed by her own body, failing from the inside out after decades of heavy metal exposure. And still, she wouldn't lie down. One of her ladies-in-waiting, Aide Scrow, wrote in her diary that the queen sat on those floor cushions for 4 straight days and nights. Attendants begged her to go to bed. She refused. When they asked why, Elizabeth looked at them with perfect clarity and said, "If I lie down, I shall never rise again." She knew. She understood exactly what was happening. Rule number 2. When you've controlled everything your entire life, surrendering feels like dying twice. So there she sat, 69 years old, the woman who'd ruled England since 1558, who'd survived assassination plots, wars, conspiracies, rebellions, who outlasted every man who ever underestimated her. And now her own body was the enemy she couldn't defeat. Robert Cecil, her Secretary of State, he's watching this whole thing unfold. He's panicking because Elizabeth never named an heir. For decades, she refused to even talk about it, but now she's clearly dying. England's about to have a serious problem. So Cecil works up the nerve. He approaches the Queen, this woman who's sitting there, face covered with sores, tongue so swollen she can't speak, and he asks, "Your Majesty, who shall succeed you?" Elizabeth couldn't answer with words. Her mouth didn't work anymore. So she did something that witnesses would talk about for centuries. She slowly raised her hands above her head, shaped them into a crown, then pointed north, toward Scotland. James VI of Scotland, Mary Queen of Scots' son. Let that sink in. Elizabeth spent most of her reign destroying Mary Stuart, kept her in prison for 19 years, had her executed in 1887, and now, in her final moments, she's handing the throne to Mary's son. If you don't laugh, you'll scream, right? Wait, this is where it gets worse. Over the next few days, Elizabeth's condition collapsed completely. The sores multiplied, turned into persistent lesions that would not heal, ruining the royal finery beneath her. The abscess in her throat grew so large she was making this wet, choking sound every time she breathed. People could hear it through the stone walls. Her skin, already unnaturally pale from all that lead makeup, turned grey. Her hair, what was left of it after years of poisoning, had mostly fallen out. Her fingers swelled up so badly they had to cut the rings off. Robert Carey, her cousin, wrote about those final days. He described Elizabeth sitting completely still for hours, one finger pressed to her lips like a child, staring at something no one else could see. When she spoke, when she could speak, it was just fragments. "Essex," she'd whisper, the name of the man she'd killed. "Must I depart?" After 4 days, they finally convinced her to lie down. It took multiple people to move her. Her body was stiff, swollen, barely functional. As they lowered her onto the bed, people said her face showed no fear, just grim certainty. She'd been right. Once she lay down, she never got up again. For 3 more days, Elizabeth drifted, in and out of consciousness. The poison that had been building up for decades was shutting down her organs, kidneys failing, liver damaged, her mind flickering between moments of clarity and long stretches of nothing. The Archbishop of Canterbury showed up to give last rites, but Elizabeth was already gone, really. Her tongue couldn't form words anymore. Her eyes would open sometimes, but they looked past everyone, like she was already somewhere else. March 24, 1603. Around 3 in the morning, Elizabeth I died. But the horror, that didn't stop. When the women of the court came to prepare her for her final journey, they found a scene of utter physical devastation. The Queen's body had succumbed to a rapid and extreme transformation. The damage caused by years of lead and mercury was so severe that it accelerated her decline even after her final breath. Some historians believe she suffered from internal complications that left her looking unrecognizable in her final state, unnaturally swollen. Some historians think she might have had ovarian cancer. Others say the heavy metal poisoning caused ascites, severe fluid buildup in the belly. Either way, the irony stings. The Virgin Queen, who'd built her entire identity around never having children, looked almost pregnant in death. They had to seal the coffin fast. The atmosphere was unbearable. Decomposition was accelerating by the hour. Even during the state funeral procession on April 28th, the people carrying the coffin reported a nauseating odor leaking through the seams. They rushed the whole thing, not out of respect, out of necessity. The body inside was literally falling apart. Here's something that'll stick with you. In the 1800s, workers at Westminster Abbey discovered something chilling. Elizabeth's lead coffin had corroded from within. The chemical reactions from the very poisons she wore in life had continued their work for centuries, compromising the heavy metal casing of her final resting place. Even in death, the white mask she wore left its mark. Look,
Modern doctors have analyzed the historical records. Elizabeth suffered from chronic lead and mercury poisoning that causes kidney failure, liver damage, neurological decline, maybe cancer. The skin ulcers her attendants described, textbook heavy metal toxicity. The throat swelling could have been a tumor or an abscess from a destroyed immune system. Her confusion in those final days, toxic encephalogy, brain damage from poison. The beauty standards of the time were lethal. She was unknowingly poisoning herself for 45 years. That pale white mask she showed the world, the face that became synonymous with power, was made from the thing that killed her. You want to know the saddest part? Elizabeth understood. In those rare moments of clarity, when she looked at her attendants with eyes that still burned with intelligence beneath that swollen, ruined face, she knew. The woman who'd controlled every aspect of her image for decades was losing control of her own body in the most public, degrading way possible. After she died, James I's new court worked fast to bury the details. Official portraits showed her serene, peaceful. Public accounts talked about a dignified passing. But the truth survived, in private letters, in secret diaries, in medical notes locked away from the public. Elizabeth Tudor didn't die peacefully. She died in a state of physical collapse, refusing to surrender, even as everything fell apart. Today, if you visit Westminster Abbey, you'll see her tomb, beautiful marble effigy, Elizabeth lying there in eternal peace, hands folded, face calm beneath a crown. It's a comforting image. It's also a complete lie. The real Elizabeth spent her final days in total physical distress caused by her worsening condition, face covered in sores, body inflamed and failing, refusing to lie down because she knew that once she did, it was over. And she was right. You can't control everything. Not even when you're the Queen of England, not even when you've spent 45 years shaping yourself into something more than human. The body keeps its own accounts, and eventually it comes to collect. If you found this story as disturbing as I did, hit that subscribe button. We've got more dark history coming your way. Drop a comment and tell me which historical figure you want us to dig into next, because trust me, there are plenty more stories like this buried in the past, just waiting to be told.